Hello and welcome to Brand Wars, the show where we dive deep into the epic rivalries that have defined our world. A huge thank you for tuning in. In our first episode, we explored the legendary clash between McDonald's and Burger King, and the incredible feedback we received from you all was fantastic. We heard you loud and clear, and we're back with another story of corporate titans locking horns. Today, we're uncapping a battle that's even more epic. A rivalry that has fizzed and bubbled for over a century, defining pop culture, advertising, and the very taste of a generation. We're talking about the colossal conflict between two giants of the beverage world, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. This isn't just a story about soda. It's a tale of brilliant marketing, risky gambles, cultural moments, and even international diplomacy. From their humble beginnings in 19th century American pharmacies to their quest for global domination, both companies have faced incredible challenges, celebrated monumental victories, and launched some of the most memorable advertising campaigns in history. They are two powerhouse brands with vastly different identities, enormous marketing budgets, and an unquenchable thirst for market supremacy. So, grab your favorite drink as we explore how these brands started, the battles they fought, and where they stand today in the ultimate cola war.
Chapter 1. The Pharmacist's Formulas. To understand this rivalry, we have to go back to the very beginning, to a time when these drinks weren't found in vending machines, but on pharmacy counters. Coca-Cola was invented in Atlanta, Georgia in 1886 by a pharmacist named John Stith Pemberton. Many people think it's a 20th century creation, but its roots are firmly in the late 19th century. Now, we have to address the most famous myth surrounding its origin, the cocaine. And it's not entirely a myth. When Coca-Cola first launched, its two key ingredients were right there in the name: cola nuts, a source of caffeine, and coca leaves, the same plant from which cocaine is synthesized. It's estimated that a single glass contained around 9 milligrams of cocaine. But here's the crucial context. Back then, cocaine wasn't the illicit substance it is today. For Americans of that era, it was a common ingredient sold in pharmacies and was even prescribed by doctors for a wide range of ailments, from depression and impotence to morphine addiction. In fact, Pemberton himself was reportedly addicted to morphine following an injury in the Civil War, and Coca-Cola was initially marketed as a medicinal tonic. It was promoted as a cure for nervous disorders, headaches, and other health issues. However, despite its potent formula, the drink was a commercial failure. Pemberton struggled to find investors and promote his creation. His own health was failing, and battling a drug addiction, he eventually went bankrupt. The rights to his formula were sold off to another pharmacist, Asa Candler, who founded the Coca-Cola Company with an initial capital of $100,000, an astronomical sum for the time. Under Candler, Coca-Cola began its journey from a struggling patent medicine to a beloved beverage. 12 years after Coke's debut, in 1898, another pharmacist named Caleb Bradham was experimenting with his own soda fountain concoctions in North Carolina. These soda fountains were the social hubs of their time, located in pharmacies where people gathered to chat and enjoy a refreshing drink. After many experiments with sugars, spices, and nuts, Bradham created a drink he called Brad's Drink. But unlike Coca-Cola, it was completely cocaine-free. Its key ingredients were pepsin, an enzyme that aids digestion, and cola nuts for caffeine. He believed his drink was not only refreshing, but also helped with digestion, so he renamed it Pepsi Cola, derived from the Greek word pepsis, meaning digestion. While Coca-Cola was positioned to cure depression, Pepsi was meant to soothe the stomach.
Chapter 2. Building an Identity. With both products on the market, the first marketing battles began. Asa Candler was a marketing genius. He published Coca-Cola's first ad in a newspaper, the Atlanta Journal, with a simple, effective slogan: Coca-Cola, delicious, refreshing, exhilarating, invigorating. He understood that branding was everything. Soon, the elegant Coca-Cola logo was everywhere, on wall clocks, calendars, pharmacy scales, and even public trash cans. By 1911, the company's advertising budget had soared to $1 million, which, adjusted for inflation, would be like $100 million today. This was the moment Coca-Cola truly conquered America. Pepsi's first slogan was exhilarating, invigorating, aids digestion, which was remarkably similar to Coke's. For a while, Pepsi was gaining momentum, but its journey was far from smooth. The First World War caused sugar prices to skyrocket, making the business unprofitable. Pepsi went bankrupt not once, but twice, before being acquired by the owner of a candy company. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola was busy cementing its brand identity. A pivotal moment was the creation of its iconic glass bottle. Pemberton hadn't seen much value in bottling, supposedly selling the rights for just $1. But in 1916, the company introduced the contoured glass bottle we know today. The design brief was to create a bottle so distinctive it could be recognized by touch in the dark or even if shattered on the ground. For over a century, that bottle has remained virtually unchanged, a masterclass in stable, recognizable branding. Pepsi's approach was the complete opposite. It was intentionally unstable, constantly evolving to keep up with the times. The logo has gone through numerous transformations. Initially, it was a spidery red script that looked a lot like Coca-Cola's. Then, in 1941, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Pepsi adopted the red, white, and blue of the American flag, a patriotic move to support the troops. In the 1960s, they dropped the word cola from the name to further distinguish themselves and switched to a clean, modern font. This constant evolution continued, with a particularly amusing chapter in 2009. When the new logo was unveiled, many pointed out its striking resemblance to Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign logo. Pepsi's marketers cheekily responded that it was Obama's team who had been inspired by Pepsi's forward-thinking positioning, not the other way around.
Chapter 3. The War Heats Up. The period from the 1920s to the 1940s brought seismic shifts to society, and both brands were quick to adapt. From 1920 to 1933, the United States was under prohibition. With alcohol banned, Coca-Cola saw a golden opportunity. The company launched a massive marketing campaign with the slogan, "The Great National Temperance Beverage." The message was clear: if you can't have a beer, have a Coke. This move brilliantly positioned Coke as the quintessential American soft drink. Perhaps Coca-Cola's most enduring marketing stroke of genius was tying its brand to Christmas. While Coke didn't invent Santa Claus, it certainly defined his modern image. Before the 1930s, Santa was depicted in many ways, sometimes as a skinny elf, other times as a spooky monster. In 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Haddon Sundblom to create a wholesome, kind, and jolly Santa for their holiday ads. He drew a warm, friendly, grandfatherly figure with a big belly and a white beard, dressed in Coca-Cola red. This image became the definitive Santa for generations, forever linking the joy of the holidays with a cold bottle of Coke. The famous "Holidays Are Coming" campaign, with its iconic trucks and jingle, is a direct descendant of this strategy. While Coke was becoming a cultural icon, Pepsi was fighting to survive. After its bankruptcies, the new owners made a desperate and brilliant move during the Great Depression. At a time when both Coke and Pepsi cost 5 cents a bottle, Pepsi began offering a 12-ounce bottle for the same price as Coke's 6.5-ounce bottle. Twice as much for a nickel. This was essentially a 50% discount. It was a massive success, pulling countless customers away from Coke. Pepsi barely made any profit on these sales, but its sales volume exploded, and by the end of the 1940s, The two companies were nearly equal in revenue. Then came World War II. Coca-Cola's leadership declared that every American soldier should be able to get a bottle of Coke for 5 cents wherever they were in the world. This was an incredible logistical and marketing feat. The company followed the American Army across the globe, from the jungles of the Pacific to the clubs of the Riviera, even setting up mobile bottling plants near the front lines. The military slogan was, "Wherever the American Army goes, Coca-Cola follows." Ads from this era depicted soldiers sharing a Coke with their allies, framing the drink as a symbol of friendship and international solidarity. This was more than just patriotism. It was a Trojan horse for global expansion. When the war ended and the soldiers came home, Coca-Cola's bottling plants and brand recognition remained, laying the groundwork for its international dominance. And here's a fascinating wartime spin-off: the birth of Fanta. During the war, the German branch of Coca-Cola couldn't get the necessary syrup from the US due to trade embargoes. So the head of Coca-Cola Germany invented a new drink using available ingredients like apple fiber and whey. He called it Fanta, from the German word for imagination. After the war, Coca-Cola bought the rights, changed the formula and color, and absorbed it into its global portfolio.
Chapter 4: The Pepsi Generation. As the world moved into the 1950s, the war was over, and a new optimistic youth culture was emerging. Pepsi, which had long been seen as the budget alternative to Coke, knew it needed a total brand overhaul. The company made a critical strategic pivot. It stopped talking about price and started talking about emotion and identity. Pepsi realized it couldn't out-Coke Coca-Cola, which had become a symbol of tradition and wholesome American values. So it decided to become the opposite. Pepsi began to target the youth. Its new ads were filled with fashionable, active, and modern young people at parties, on motorcycles, playing volleyball on the beach. This strategy culminated in the legendary Pepsi Generation campaign of the 1960s. The message was powerful and divisive. There are Coke people and there are Pepsi people. If you were a Pepsi person, you were part of the new forward-thinking generation. The future belonged to you. Pepsi wasn't just a drink anymore. It was a declaration of youth and modernity. The slogan, "Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation," was a direct challenge to Coke's established, more conservative image. Pepsi had finally found its niche, the progressive, active youth. This brand platform was so successful that Pepsi used variations of it all the way into the 2000s. During this period, in 1964, Pepsi also made a monumental business decision that would shape its future. It expanded beyond beverages and acquired the snack company Frito-Lay. As we'll see later, this move into snacks was an epical decision that would prove crucial to the company's long-term success. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola was also rebranding for the new era. In the 1960s, it launched a massive campaign under the theme, "It's the Real Thing." This was a direct response to Pepsi's new generation positioning. The message was clear. Pepsi might be for the fleeting trends of youth, but Coca-Cola is authentic, unique, and timeless. Only Coke is Coke. The company began shifting its advertising away from the product's attributes and toward the emotions it evoked. This culminated in the iconic 1971 Hilltop ad, where a diverse group of young people from around the world gathered on a hillside in Italy to sing, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke." The ad was a cultural phenomenon. It perfectly captured the peace and love zeitgeist of the era and reinforced Coke's new positioning. It wasn't for individualists like Pepsi. It was a drink that brought people together. It was for the collective, for harmony, for the whole world. This idea of sharing and togetherness, a big family table with Coke at the center, would become a cornerstone of Coke's marketing for decades to come.
Chapter 5: The Pepsi Challenge. By the mid-1970s, Coca-Cola's Real Thing campaign was a huge success, and Pepsi's market share was once again falling. Pepsi needed to do something drastic to change the game, and they did. In 1975, they launched one of the most audacious and aggressive marketing campaigns in history, the Pepsi Challenge. The concept was brilliantly simple. In public places, people were asked to do a blind taste test of two unlabeled colas and say which one they preferred. The results were consistently, shockingly, in Pepsi's favor. More people chose the taste of Pepsi over Coke. These tests were filmed and aired as commercials, featuring the genuine reactions of lifelong Coke drinkers who were stunned to discover they actually preferred Pepsi. This was an innovative and incredibly smart move. Pepsi shifted the conversation away from brand loyalty and emotional connection and back to the most rational factor, taste. It was a direct assault on Coke's core identity. The campaign was a massive success and significantly closed the gap between the two brands. This led Coca-Cola to a moment of crisis. The company was so rattled by the Pepsi Challenge that it made what is now considered one of the biggest marketing blunders of all time. They decided to change the sacred 99-year-old formula of Coca-Cola. In 1985, after extensive market research and taste tests that showed consumers preferred a sweeter flavor, more like Pepsi's, the company launched New Coke. The public reaction was not just negative, it was a firestorm of outrage. Coca-Cola had fundamentally misunderstood its own brand. People didn't just drink Coke for the taste, they drank it for the emotional connection, the tradition, the stability. It was a piece of Americana. The company was flooded with thousands of angry calls and letters. Protest groups formed. People felt betrayed. The word new was the last thing consumers associated with the brand. The fiasco was a marketing catastrophe. But it had a silver lining. Just 79 days after launching New Coke, the company announced it was bringing back the original formula, rebranding it as Coca-Cola Classic. When the old Coke returned, its sales skyrocketed. Consumers who had taken the brand for granted suddenly realized how much it meant to them. Some even speculated that the whole thing was a brilliant marketing ploy to reignite passion for the brand. The company's official response was cagey, quote, "The truth is, we are not that dumb and we are not that smart," end quote. But whatever the truth, the New Coke debacle ultimately reinforced Coke's identity as a timeless classic and inadvertently boosted its sales. Meanwhile, Pepsi had a field day, running ads that mocked Coke's mistake and celebrated the fact that their competitor had essentially admitted Pepsi's taste was better.
Chapter 6: The Soviet Coup. While the Cola Wars raged in America, Pepsi executed a geopolitical masterstroke that gave it an entire empire to itself. In the heat of the Cold War, Pepsi managed to break into a massive, untapped market, the Soviet Union. The story begins in 1959 at the American National Exhibition in Moscow, an event designed to showcase the American way of life to the Soviets. Donald Kendall, the head of Pepsi's international division at the time, was determined to get a photograph of the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev drinking a Pepsi. He enlisted the help of then Vice President Richard Nixon. They devised a clever plan, offering Khrushchev two versions of Pepsi, one made with American water and one with Russian water, asking him to say which was better. Of course, Khrushchev tried both and declared the one made with Soviet water was superior. The resulting photo of the communist leader holding a cup of Pepsi was a massive PR victory that made headlines around the world. It took until the early 1970s to finalize a deal, but eventually, Pepsi became the first American consumer product to be produced and sold in the USSR. But there was a major hurdle: money. The Soviet ruble was not a convertible currency on the international market. So a unique deal was struck: barter. The U.S. would provide the Pepsi concentrate and equipment, and the Soviet Union would pay for it with the one currency it had in abundance: vodka. PepsiCo became the official distributor of Stolichnaya vodka in the United States, which quickly became the second best-selling vodka in the country. By the late 1980s, the deal had become lopsided. Pepsi was incredibly popular in the USSR, and the Soviets needed to pay for more concentrate than the Americans could ever offset with vodka sales. So the USSR offered another form of payment, something it produced better than almost anyone else: military hardware. In a truly surreal transaction, the Soviet Union gave Pepsi a fleet of 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer. For a brief moment in time, PepsiCo was the owner of the sixth largest navy in the world. The company's CEO famously joked to the U.S. National Security Advisor, "We are disarming the Soviet Union faster than you are." The fleet, of course, was immediately sold for scrap metal. This monopoly in the Soviet Union had an ironic twist. When the USSR collapsed in 1991, Pepsi was associated with the old, stagnant Soviet era. For the newly free people of Russia and Eastern Europe, Coca-Cola, which had been absent, represented the new, free Western world. As soon as it could, Coke flooded the market, and by 1996 had overtaken Pepsi to become the #1 cola in Russia, a position it holds to this day.
Chapter 7: The Celebrity Arms Race. The 1980s and 90s were the peak of the celebrity-fueled cola wars. Both brands poured hundreds of millions of dollars into securing the biggest stars on the planet to be their ambassadors. The strategy was to associate their drink with the success, glamour, and excitement of pop culture icons. Pepsi, true to its new generation image, went all in on this strategy. They signed a record-breaking deal with the undisputed king of pop, Michael Jackson. The Michael Jackson Pepsi Generation commercials were more than just ads. They were cultural events, mini movies that cemented Pepsi's status as the cool, edgy choice. They also signed a galaxy of other stars, including Tina Turner, David Bowie, and Madonna. However, this high-stakes strategy was also fraught with risk. In 1984, during the filming of a Pepsi commercial, a pyrotechnics effect malfunctioned, and Michael Jackson suffered severe burns to his scalp and face. The incident led to a lifelong struggle with pain and an addiction to painkillers. Later, a Pepsi campaign with Madonna had to be canceled after her music video for Like a Prayer, which featured controversial religious imagery, caused an uproar and led to boycott threats. These incidents showed the downside of tying your brand so closely to unpredictable celebrities. Coca-Cola also had its share of celebrity endorsements, from Whitney Houston to Elton John, but its approach was often broader. Coke aimed to be a part of everyone's life, not just the lives of pop stars. It was integrated into films through pioneering product placement. The company even bought Columbia Pictures in the 1980s to ensure its products were seamlessly featured in movies. The goal was to make Coke so ubiquitous in films that its presence felt natural, not like an advertisement. When you see a Coke bottle in a movie, it feels like it just belongs there, a testament to how deeply the brand has woven itself into the fabric of everyday life. This celebrity arms race was about creating subconscious associations. The jingles from these ads became anthems for a generation. The idea was that when you hear a beloved song by Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston, your brain links that feeling of pleasure to the brand. And the next time you're thirsty, that subconscious connection might just be enough to make you reach for their product. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of consumers, fought on the airwaves and concert stages of the world. Chapter 8: The Super Bowl Showdown.
Nowhere was the brand war more public, more expensive, or more spectacular than during the Super Bowl. For advertisers, the Super Bowl is the ultimate arena. It's the most watched television event in the United States, and a 30-second commercial spot can cost upwards of $5.5 million. It's a showcase for the best, most creative, and most ambitious advertising the world has to offer. Throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, Coke and Pepsi used the Super Bowl to launch some of their most memorable and direct attacks on each other. Pepsi, in particular, created a series of iconic ads that have gone down in advertising history. One famous ad featured a little boy who buys 2 cans of Coca-Cola from a vending machine, only to put them on the ground so he can stand on them to reach the button for a Pepsi. It was a hilarious and audacious jab at their rival. Another classic ad showed 2 delivery truck drivers, one from Coke and one from Pepsi, meeting at a remote diner. They cautiously try each other's drinks and find they actually like them. The Pepsi driver, wanting his Pepsi back, offers up his entire Coke truck in exchange, but the Coke driver refuses, having fallen in love with the Pepsi. It was a charming and clever way to reinforce the taste preference message of the Pepsi challenge. Perhaps the peak of Pepsi's Super Bowl extravagance was a 2004 ad that was less of a commercial and more of a short film. Set in the Roman Colosseum, it starred Britney Spears, Pink, Beyoncé, and Enrique Iglesias as gladiators who refused to fight and instead break into a rock rendition of Queen's "We Will Rock You," turning the violent spectacle into a massive concert for the emperor. It was epic, expensive, and a perfect embodiment of Pepsi's voice of a generation branding. Coca-Cola's Super Bowl ads were often more heartwarming and focused on unity and happiness. Their Polar Bears campaign became a beloved Super Bowl tradition, featuring adorable animated polar bears sharing a Coke under the northern lights. Another famous ad, Mean Joe Green, showed a tough football player being offered a Coke by a young fan, melting his heart. In the 2000s, they launched the Factory of Happiness ad, a fantastical journey inside a vending machine, which became a global hit. These ads reinforced Coke's core message of bringing people together and creating moments of joy. The Super Bowl was their annual stage to prove who could capture the world's attention most effectively.
Chapter 9. A Shift in Strategy. As the 2000s progressed, the landscape began to change. The era of direct, head-to-head cola combat started to fade. A series of missteps and unfortunate events hurt Pepsi's image. In the early 90s, a bizarre scandal erupted when syringes were allegedly found in cans of Pepsi. Though the claims were proven to be a hoax, the negative publicity was damaging. Later, a 2017 ad starring Kendall Jenner, which depicted her calming a protest by handing a police officer a can of Pepsi, was widely condemned for trivializing serious social justice movements and was quickly pulled. The ad was seen as a major creative and ethical failure. More importantly, a massive cultural shift was underway: the rise of health consciousness. Suddenly, sugary sodas were seen as a major contributor to America's obesity problem. Both companies came under fire, but Pepsi seemed to be on the back foot more often. Coca-Cola, with its timeless classic image, seemed to weather the storm better. It was during this time that PepsiCo's 1964 acquisition of Frito-Lay proved to be its saving grace. While the Pepsi-Cola brand was struggling, PepsiCo as a corporation was thriving. Their portfolio was packed with other successful brands, from Lay's potato chips and Doritos to Tropicana juices and Quaker Oats. In the mid-2000s, the company made a conscious strategic decision. They began to shift their focus and marketing budget away from the flagship Pepsi brand and toward these other, healthier or faster-growing products. This was a form of surrender in the cola war, but a brilliant business move for the corporation as a whole. In 2010, For the first time in 23 years, Pepsi did not run a Super Bowl ad, instead investing the money in a community grant program. The move was laudable, but it signaled the end of an era. The following year, in 2011, a symbolic milestone was reached. Diet Coke officially surpassed Pepsi to become the #2 best-selling soda in the United States. The war for cola supremacy was, for all intents and purposes, over. Coca-Cola had won. Conclusion. So looking at the scoreboard today, who is the ultimate winner? If we're talking strictly about the cola-on-cola battle, the victory clearly goes to Coca-Cola. In the critical U.S. market, Coca-Cola holds a commanding market share of around 45%, while Pepsi sits at about 25%. The Coca-Cola brand itself is consistently ranked as one of the most valuable and recognizable in the world. Its strategy of stability, emotional connection, and universal appeal has created a truly enduring icon. However, if we look at the bigger picture, the parent companies, the story is much more complex. PepsiCo, thanks to its brilliant diversification into snacks and other beverages, is an absolute corporate giant. In terms of overall revenue and company valuation, PepsiCo and the Coca-Cola Company are surprisingly close, often trading blows for the top spot. Pepsi's decision to shift focus away from the cola wars and build a diversified portfolio was its path to victory in the broader business war. The rivalry has forced both brands to be better, more innovative, and more creative. It has given us some of the most memorable moments in advertising history and has shaped global pop culture for over a century. From a pharmacist's tonic to a symbol of global capitalism, the story of Coke versus Pepsi is a testament to the power of branding. Even a simple gesture like soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo pushing aside 2 bottles of Coke at a press conference in 2021 could temporarily wipe billions off the company's market value, showing just how potent these brand symbols remain. The battle of the giants will undoubtedly continue, evolving with new tastes, new media, and new generations. But the core conflict, the traditional classic versus the modern challenger, the drink of unity versus the choice of the individual, will forever be a legendary chapter in the history of business. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the Cola Wars. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to Brand Wars so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll explore another epic corporate rivalry. Until then, stay curious.